Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Doug Dean with Schaeferts and Dean, and I'd like to welcome you to our Business Builder Speaker Series. We know that you're busy and we appreciate you giving us some time this afternoon. To make the most of your time, we encourage you to ask questions and participate using the chat box. Before I introduce this month's speaker, I'd like to give you a preview of next month's speaker. Join us next month for Lisa Award with Premier Design and Remodel, online, making the right updates to help owners sell faster and for more money. And our business builder is the third Wednesday every month at 1 p.m. It's 1 hour on Zoom. And although it is great information, it's not for CE credit, just a 1 hour informational session. And I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Jack Baldwin with Raynard Custom Homes. And I asked him to join us today and talk about what does it take to build a home. So Jack, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. My name is Jack Baldwin. I'm going to give you a little bit of intro. Hopefully, is my presentation displaying now? Can you see that, Doug?
Let me move. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, my name is Jack Baldwin. Want to jump right into the topic and then I'll give some introductions and go through everything. But what I want to talk about today, how to find the right property or what does it take to build a custom home. Finding the right property is kind of geared towards you guys as real estate agents. And as you're talking to clients, specifically, this conversation is going to be about a custom home. So when you're talking to someone who's looking for that prime piece of land, my main objective is to give you some food for thought as you're having those conversations. So, what should you expect while I'm talking today? Introduction. That's what we're doing right now. Just a couple of minutes of who I am, why you should listen to me, and what we're going to do. The next 20 or 30 minutes is going to be me talking. I've got a little bit of a presentation I'm going to walk through, and I would love to hear your questions. You've got Q's, I've got A's. I don't know that we need 20 to 30 minutes, but I've allotted about that much time. Um, we've got a chat window that I would love for you guys to participate in. If I don't know the answers, I'll tell you, but I will give you my best shot at it. Um, First of all, who is Raynard Custom Homes? What do we do? I thought it would be a good idea to start there, so you understand kind of the why. Why am I even here? Why did I agree to be here? Well, my mission, the reason I started my company with my two partners was to collaborate with clients and create unique homes that last a lifetime. And the reason I'm talking to you as real estate agents is I believe if that's your intention, if you're talking to a client that wants to collaborate with you to find the right piece of land and wants to collaborate with an architecture design firm that wants to create a unique home, that's who we love to talk to. We love every day to talk to dreamers, people who have a piece of property that they want to put their dream home on, and a well-built home. So it's custom. It's exactly uh, based on their ideas and their design inspiration and their needs and their budget. So that's what we do. That's why I'm here. I'm hoping that this conversation leads to more and more um, collaborative conversations with people like that for you. If you'd like to connect, I'm going to leave this up for just a minute. You can grab your mobile device and scan that QR code, and that will bring up all of my contact information, all of my links. If you just like to pick your favorite social media, please connect there. I love making new connections. If you want to check out my website or browse in the background while we're talking and see some of our custom homes that we've designed, I'd love to have you visit. But I'm going to leave that up just so you can connect with me. It's a virtual business card. I'm always looking for opportunities to network. I'm always looking for real estate agents to partner with. So I would love to get to know you better. That's a great way to do that. Who am I? Like I said, Jack Baldwin. I co-founded Raynard Custom Homes. I am the CEO, so I'm the primary sales and marketing VP, as well as the founder and CEO of Raynard Custom Homes. So I will be talking to you from a business owner perspective. but I understand what goes into the process of developing a custom home project. So I'm going to talk about that today. My other partner is James Knight. He is our lead architect, and I have a partner who is our CFO. We really need smart people with money, so I brought her on to manage the funds, so I can focus on business development, networking, and talking to potential clients. So the very first thing I want to talk about when it comes to finding a property, developing a home, getting it built, we always start with intention before anything else. And I think you guys know that too. You're talking to somebody who says, "Hey, I'm looking for a new home." Well, is it a rehab? Is it a renovation? Is it an existing home? And is it in a pre-built community? Understanding intention. When somebody comes to you and says, I really want to build my own custom home, I really want to understand what's the story. And I want to understand what their intention is. So before we do anything, it's so very important to understand intention. And then I put this Venn diagram up here to say, understanding intention means understanding all three of these aspects. This is what makes up a successful design of a custom home, and this is scalable. If we're looking at the Mercedes Benz dome or a single family home, it doesn't matter. There's a budget. Everybody's got a budget. Uh, just because it's a big budget, it's not unlimited. So we need to understand. I think it's important to understand from the very beginning, just as you would when you talk to a client who's looking to buy a new home, what's your price range? What are you trying to accomplish? And so I try to marry all three of these things together. And right in the middle is our sweet spot. So if we understand design, I want to understand style. What are your likes? What are your dislikes? Um, I want to understand what you're trying to accomplish. What kind of a view are you trying to get? That informs a lot of the times, um, that perfect piece of property. If we're looking in a neighborhood, for example, with an ARB or an architectural review board or a homeowners association or somewhere that has covenants, then we might have some restrictions around design. But I need to understand that. I need to understand what are those design intentions before we get started. That oftentimes does inform picking out that right piece of property. Function. Um, what am I trying to accomplish? Do I need a pool on the property? Do I need handicap access? Am I having the grandkids visit? Do I like to do outdoor cooking? All of those things are good questions to ask. And so I really encourage people to understand intention around design, budget, and function as early as possible. Because I really believe it helps you find that perfect piece of property. Asking questions to understand intention gets us there. Once we get to that perfect piece of property, or what we uh, deem a good piece of property that we want to explore, we don't want to be quick to close. We don't want a real estate agent that is just motivated by, hey, yes, here's an opportunity to sell, um, and then they jump the gun. A good real estate agent, in my mind, or somebody I want to partner with, is somebody who has really helped them find that piece of property with this in mind. So I always think it's important, no matter where you're at in the process, always going back to that intention, but really starting there. So when we finally find that site that we want to develop, there are some steps that need to go into it. And you guys have a due diligence process when you purchase a property. We usually have some earnest money, or we have some investments that go into it up front. But really, what I'm looking at from a design perspective, if I'm hoping to get your home built, is I want to discover that site. So when you're talking to a client and you've led them to a piece of property, it's important to pair them with a partner who can really help them understand what is going to go into preparing this site. And it's not necessarily for the real estate agent to give cost analysis, but it is important to ask questions and get them thinking about the site prep, because when they come to a design firm like ours, we are going to want to understand the four corners of this property as best as possible. And so we usually start with a process of discovery. And what that's going to entail is cost requirements and home location. When I say that, I mean cost to prep. That could mean, for example, am I going to be clearing out trees? Is this property going to need to be graded? Is it on a slope? Is it on a flat piece of property? Is there drainage issues that are going to require a heavy upfront cost? We don't want to assume just because we find this picturesque, beautiful property that we could just go out there and build on it. We have people who come up to us all the time and go, "Hey, I've found these plans online. I want to build them." I'm like, "That's great, but we need to make sure those plans work with the property. We need to make sure the property is going to work with your plans." So we do a very good job of understanding the property first, and that's something a client should be thinking about before they go too far in the process. And it's not necessarily that it's prohibitive to them purchasing the property, but you definitely want them thinking long term before they get started and observing some things like what trees do they want to clear, what can they clear, and that brings us to requirements. What can you do? So we're going to always have requirements, whether we're out way out in the rural parts of Georgia or the southeast to the inner city. There's requirements, and of course those are more stringent depending on where you are. But there's always requirements, and I'm talking about municipalities. I'm talking about covenants, restrictions. Talking about the city, if we're within the parameters of Sandy Springs or the city of Atlanta or city of Milton, whatever. Are we in a historical area? Are we in a HOA area? Are we in a place that, there's covenants that were written a long, long time ago that are on the county books and we need to talk about? Also, what are the requirements for a building permit? No matter where you are, somebody's going to have to give a building permit. It's very important to understand that up front. So we do ask our clients to come to us and have some understanding. As a real estate agent, I would think it'd be very important to know some of those requirements before you're showing a piece of property. Make sure that the clients are well prepared and well versed. And this is something you're probably doing anyway, but again, this is really good food for thought. The other thing is home location. We really want to know where are we going to place this house, and a lot of clients have their own idea of where they would like it to fit, um, but it's a process of understanding. So a lot of the times, what we need, and a great way to be prepared for the design process, is to have a topographical site survey. And I'll show you what that looks like. You've probably seen one before, but almost always, if not always, we need a topographical site survey, and that's going to help us with our requirements down the road, which we'll get into. But it also really helps us understand where do we want to put the home, what's an ideal location, which way is north, south, east, and west, so that we can capture sunlight, we can capture views, we can build on a buildable piece of property that's not going to require a huge upfront cost to get there. So just site prep, there's a lot that goes into it. I did talk about the authorities already, but I want to talk about what does this mean in your world, municipalities, approving entities, but I also put the client in there. They're the authority on that say too. So for us, it's engaging very early, grabbing documents, making phone calls. Do we need a septic permit? Do we need a well to be put in there for utilities? That's a little bit of the site prep, but I kind of covered authority, but I wanted to bring that up too, as far as what goes into getting ready to build. The other thing that's really important is the construction loan process. And I'm not a construction loan officer, but we'll be talking to one next week. So if anybody would like to join us for that webinar, that's going to be available, where I'm talking to Libby Long from Truist Bank, who's a construction loan officer. What they typically need are plans and specs. So before they can start releasing funds, so there's a land purchase that happens, and there's ways that they can structure. Every bank's a little different. They have different loan offerings, as you know from experience, but there are opportunities where you can use that land purchase as part of the collateral for the purchase of the home with the construction loan. There's ways that can be combined. Again, that's more of what a loan officer would talk about, but it's important to ask those questions as you're talking about the land purchase. Talk to the bank. What do they need? What are they looking for to provide a successful construction loan? It's important to ask those questions as you're talking to the client. What are your plans once you buy this piece of property? What's the end in mind? How are we going to get a construction loan? And so before they can approve a construction loan, oftentimes what they need are plans and specs. And that's what a design firm like myself would do. Plans meaning architectural documents, designs, floor plans, elevations, notes, everything that goes into an architectural plan, but also specifications. What does that mean? materials. We as a design firm, we design the entire four corners of the home that they're going to live in. That's the outdoor livable space. So we partner with a landscape designer on our team. We do all the specifications for the outside, the hardscapes, the stone paths, the fences, the pools, um, everything that's on the outside. We want to specify meaning coming up with the finishes of it, the colors, um, where does it going to go, where is it going to fit on the plan, what price is it going to be. Same for the interiors and the exteriors. How much are my roofing materials going to cost? How much are my cabinets and my vanities and my floors and countertops and windows and everything that goes into building a home? A bank is going to want to see those things specified. We do that. We provide those plans and specifications from top to bottom. Every nail that goes into the home, to every blade of grass on the outside of the house that's designed with the design intent is going to be specified. So it's very, very important to make sure that that's done during the design process, not during the construction process. And the distinction I'm making is that you're designing with the end in mind. You're designing around that budget, so specifying to that budget and to that design intent and to that function is very important. Draw schedule, it's important to understand what that draw schedule is going to be so that clients are attuned to when they're going to be receiving funds. How are they going to pay their professionals to get the home built? What's the schedule? We need to understand what they need to present to the bank to begin the draw process. As a design firm, we want to get them there. We want to get them to that point. And so it's asking a lot of questions and understanding from the bank and from the design firm and making sure that there's a good communication as early as possible between those two entities. So this is an example of a home that we are under design on, or actually we've just completed the design, and it's currently under construction. So it's about to be built. This is up in Talking Rock, Georgia, up in North Georgia. As you can see, this is nearly 300 acres that this client was able to purchase. Very big piece of property. And I pulled this property out because it's the biggest one that we've worked on. Um, there are actually going to be two very large homes that are going to sit on this property. It's been divided up into tracks. As an example, in this case, dividing up the tract, for example, finding where the sites are going to sit and making sure that we can get that approved by the county is part of that authority that I talked about earlier. Just because we have 300 acres, how are we going to divide it for an individual building permit so we can have more than one home sit on this property? As you can see, this is a long, long driveway to the corner. Down the bottom left-hand corner is where the property, where the home is actually going to sit on this nearly 300 acres. So what we did was we took a plat, we took a site survey, and we started placing the home. We were able to start coming up with a plan for clearing and paving and getting construction equipment to this site. So just because we have a road up at the top left right hand corner, we still have to get access and create access. But I need to know how things are going to orient and where the client wants to sit. So getting this just kind of gives you an idea of uh, what is it looking in contextualized situation of getting a home built on a rather large piece of property. What we then do, once we have an idea, in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, you'll see topography. Topography is so important for us. We were able to select a site that sits kind of high on the hill here. So this client had a really great dream for what kind of home they wanted to build. And in the top right-hand corner, you can see some of our architectural images that we created during the design process of what this estate is going to look like once it's completed. But we, as a design team, went out to the property, drove that long stretch of gravel road, so we got to this perfect place that was cleared out. Fortunately for the client, there was a cleared space, so that answered some of our questions about site prep. What are we going to have to do to create a home experience that they want? And by the time we got up there, we could look out and just see a gorgeous panoramic view. And since the client was able to purchase 300 acres nearly, there's no other homes on this piece of property. So once they're here, kind of perched up on the topography, and we go and look around, we can start dreaming. We can start space planning. We can start putting a footprint on there. We can orient the home in relation to the sunrise and sunset. And we're starting to begin that conversation of how is this home going to look? And so it's always important to think of the end in mind when you're talking to people. We're not just eager to close a deal, we're really eager to get them a dream that can happen. And asking all of these questions and thinking about these things and getting the information is how we can answer the question: can this happen? Yes, it can, and here's how and why. Dividing up the land. So in this case, we wanted to turn it into a couple of different tracts. That's going to require a conversation with the county, but we as a design firm want to be able to present that. So if we're going to have multiple tracks, in this case, for this one project, we've got track two and track one, meaning we just have 5 acres each of buildable property on that 300 acres. That's what we're going to go to the county with and ask them to approve. At this point, they have, but we need to present a plan in order for that to happen. So asking ourselves these questions again: can this happen? What is it going to take to make that happen? A good real estate agent, a good design firm are going to find out those answers early instead of just saying yes to everything. So that when we do say yes, we've peeled back the layers and we've asked those questions early, talk to those entities, talk to those approving people so that we can actually find out if it can be done. So I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about the design build process, because I'm hoping this will give you some understanding. The more you understand about the process and what it looks like to engage with a design firm, my hope is that you can kind of prep your clients for the conversation they would have with me. Because I really hope you guys bring me a lot of connections with dreamers, people who are looking to design a custom home. And so my hope is that as I talk and you hear from me and understand the process, you can prep them and you can get them excited about what's next, because you've at least got a little bit of a bird's eye view of what does it take. So if they're asking, hey, I found this great piece of land, what's next? Well, hey, you should talk to Jack. He's going to help you get that dream to come true. From our perspective, we're going back to that design, budget, and function again. I always like to break things down into threes. It really helps me understand it. But design, the first part of the process is understanding and capturing your inspiration. And that's going to mean our architecture. So we start with thinking about the layout, thinking about the dimensions and the square footage. Where's the home going to sit? Developing an architectural plan. We start talking about interiors. What is the look and feel going to be? But also, what are those materials going to be that are required for getting that home to look and feel exactly how it should? How is it going to relate to the space? Um, if we're walking down the hall, are we going into the master bedroom or into the living room? Coming up with a theme for the home that's consistent from room to room, but still has its own character from room to room. A lot of times we will develop 3D renderings and visualizations that help guide that conversation so that a client really feels like their inspiration's being captured. The landscape, we don't want to make the landscape an afterthought with a custom home project. We really want to understand what vegetation and plant life do they want to include into their design, but also what hardscapes are going to be a part of their livable space. And functionally, we want to understand water flow, drainage, and site location. We don't want to have that be an afterthought, because we put this beautiful home on a piece of property. We're not accounting for the topography and the water flow and where it's going when it rains. We could have some issues further down the road that's not going to protect the investment. And these are the type of things we're thinking about as a design firm as we go into a project. Function, kind of touched on this just a moment ago, but how do we plan the space? That's functional. Are we looking for some people want to retire and have an age in place, and this is going to be their forever home? So, do they want everything to be on the main level, or do they want to avoid stairs, for example, or do they want to have play areas upstairs and have a finished basement, or do they want a small home where they can go out on the porch and drink a cup of coffee while they watch the sunrise? So space planning is very important. Longevity. How do we make the home last? It's all about picking out the right materials, picking out the right design approach, and thinking about long-term investments. And it's kind of a bell curve. You start investing money to get solutions. You can spend too much money when you're not going to get that return on your investment. But we do want longevity. We want a home that's going to last. We want it to be sustainable. That doesn't always mean it has to be eco-e. It could just mean that we're using smart materials and we're orienting the home properly. I touched on activity too, but how are we going to spend our time? How do we define fun? What's day to night look like when you're living on the home? All of that informs design. Budget, we want to design to a budget. The things that go into a budget are the construction costs of labor and materials, the site requirements, which I spoke about earlier, understanding the permitting process. We provide an itemized pre-construction budget sheet. So as we're designing, we're constantly reviewing budget. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you guys said you want to build a $2 million home. That's great, but you're designing a $3 million home. So where do we need to make changes to get you there? Or hey, you're under budget. You've got a $50,000 allowance. You want to put that into the kitchen? Great. Here's how we do that. So as we're designing, we're thinking about the cost of labor and materials. As you know, interest rates go up and down, supply chain issues go up and down, labor costs, material costs go up and down. Where are we at in real time? We want to answer those questions. That goes into a successful design. Picking out the right materials, inside, outside, exterior, all of that is going to generate that specification sheet. That's going to go to the construction loan, but it's also going to go to your builder. We do have a builder on our team, so we can get it built for you, or you can go find your own builder. We're primarily the design firm that puts our clients in a position to get their home built with a set of specifications, an itemized construction budget sheet, and a set of plans that'll get them there. And also, we're thinking about return on that investment. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, energy efficiency and the design, and also minimizing your upkeep. So, we do want to think about your landscape and your internal selections being things that are going to minimize what you're going to have to do to keep the home, upkeep. What's going to last, and minimize the amount of further investment on repair and replacement that you'd have to do. So how do we get there? I've laid out what you need, but how do we do that? Our approach is to bring a good team together. A lot of times, these are the requirements, and a lot of times, clients, unless they don't know any, but when they don't know any better, they're looking at piecing together all of these professionals. So they say, yeah, I definitely need floor plans. So they go talk to an architect. Oh, I definitely need it built. So I'm going to go talk to a builder. Oh, I need it engineered because I'm building a really big house. And I didn't know, but now I know that I need an engineer. So I got to go talk to an engineer, et cetera, et cetera. I need a project manager, an interior designer. And pretty quickly, you've got all of these different, in this case, we've got at least 6 different players, 6 different entities that go into a successful design. And if we're just talking to one and then we're talking to the other, we're talking to this, we're talking to that, it's going to lead to higher costs. It's going to lead to longer delays because these people are not talking to each other. The construction guy, the builder is going to tell you one thing, and the architect's going to tell you one thing. And unless they're working together in cohesion, you're hearing things from different perspectives, and it's going to have a scattered design. It's going to have what it is. It's all over the place. So what we really pride ourselves on doing, the approach that we take is bringing all of this into one house. So every time somebody comes to me, to Raynard Custom Homes to get their home design, I offer them these 6 people as a unified team. They're already pre-selected by me and my team. Um, they're what we call the best of the best, and they're all driven by getting that custom home built. We don't want it just designed, but we want it built. So we want to advise early when we go into a piece of property. So real estate agent, you talk to that client, you get them to buy the property. Well, day one, when you engage with us to get the home built, we're going to offer insight from an architectural perspective, a landscape design perspective, a pre-construction perspective, so that we're thinking about site prep and what it's going to take, a project management perspective. So we're talking to the HOA, we're talking to the ARB, we're calling the county or the city or the Historical Preservation Society, whoever is involved that's going to be approving, but we're also talking to site surveyists if we need them. Our project manager would be. We're talking to a septic survey. Sometimes you need a soil and perk test, which I didn't touch on yet, but that's another geotechnical engineering. Sometimes you need to talk to that person before you start building. Our project manager is identifying those people so that it is coming under our umbrella, and it is going to be a successful build. So we're answering those questions early. That's what goes into it. Is there going to be a well? Is there going to be a septic? All the things that go into it. Uh, we're talking to those people from those perspectives, so we can get this home built. Engineering. I want an engineer involved very early, so he or she can tell me, yes, this home can be built on this piece of property, or it can, but you're going to need to invest in this type of engineering or this type of engineering solution. Because say you want to build on a slope, you want a great view of the mountains or the creek below. Hey, that's awesome, but here's how you engineer it. We want to talk to that engineer early. So we bring it all together. Our approach is bring a custom home design team, look at all these things, answer all these questions, and then design with that intent. That's how we do it. That is where I wanted to pause. That was about half an hour of time of me talking, which I promised I was going to keep um, that timeline. I do see one chat, so I'm going to pull that up. Oh, I see. Yes. Hi. And I believe your name is Ninfa, if I pronounced that correctly, I hope. But I would love to hear some questions. I don't know if you're allowing people to unmute, Doug, and
Oh,
ask
yeah,
them. If
yeah. They do have the ability to unmute. Ninfa had at 105, she had said yes, she could hear you, and that was when you were
okay,
first getting unmuted.
okay, thank
Uh,
you.
and I don't think I mentioned it at the beginning, but I usually mention it at the end. We do record our Zoom business builders and post them to our YouTube channel so that you'll have the opportunity to go back and listen to it again or share it with somebody that might benefit from seeing it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I opened this last 15, 20 minutes, whatever we've got, to answer questions. And I hope there's a lot of them, and I hope they're within my wheelhouse that I can answer. But I would love to hear um, either verbally if you want to ask it, or if you're shy and you want to type it up in the chat window. I'm ready.
Hey there, Jack. Good afternoon. This is Sandra. I typed a question earlier, but I got kicked off because I drove into a garage. But I had asked if you provided those services for rehabs, or was it just only for custom build?
Our company specializes in custom build, so we look at it from a um, top to bottom brand new home. That's us. However, a lot of the things that I touched on, there are design firms that specialize in rehabs, they specialize in renovations, um, particularly if it's a homeowner who found that great piece of property. That's what they want to do. If I may, I'd like to talk a little bit about that process since we did take on some of those projects in the past and we've learned some lessons. We just found that we got really good at new build. That's just what we like to do. But let's say, Sandra, you are talking to a client and you look at a piece of property that needs a lot of work. We've done those projects in the past, and we turned them into successful builds. Well, the first thing I need to do that, I'm going to ask the question of, are we staying within the four walls of the existing home, or are we going to expand? The moment that we expand, we need a site survey. If we're staying within the four walls of the existing structure and we're just going to remodel, maybe we're going to gut it, and, tear it out and everything. I do want to think about engineering. I want to think about the load bearing walls in the home, for example. So I'm going to ask myself questions like that. Can it be engineered with my foundation? Is it a slab? Is it a crawl space? What do we have underneath us? Can it bear to go up if that's what we want to do? For example, we want to knock out walls. Which ones? And what's going to leave the structure intact? Those are really important questions to ask first. So the moment we expand outside of those four walls and we start going into maybe an accessory dwelling unit, which is a detached livable space, for example, or we want to kick out the bedroom or make the square footage of the home bigger, I need a site survey. The other questions I would start asking are, where is this? Am I in a historical neighborhood? Am I in a neighborhood that's going to require HOA approval? Can I change the paint colors, for example? What's my approval process going to look like? The other thing I would do if I was going to help you with a project like that is do what are called as-built drawings. That's an upfront investment from the client as well. they are going to need to get the existing drawings before they do anything. We need to know what we're working with. So that means having somebody come out and measure it. There are a lot of measurement companies out there who will come out for relatively inexpensive and give you just the measurements, and they'll provide them to an architect. But an architect is going to draw up this home, and it's the existing structure. They're called as-builts. Those as-builts are what you're going to use to then create the new vision for the home. So we want that before we start. Even if we're just doing interiors, I would highly recommend having the as-built dimensions of the home done before you start designing. I hope that answers the question. And if you'd like to ask a follow-up, I'd be glad to hear that.
No, I think this helps. Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a great question. I saw Peggy just wrote a question. If I could get to that one.
Go ahead.
Does the land have to be purchased separately first before the construction loan is applied for? Yes, the bank wants to see you have a piece of property. They're not going to release funds or give you a construction loan if you don't have land. A construction loan is separate from the purchase of the property. Like I said earlier, you can typically roll so let's say you have a note you didn't pay cash. Ideally, you want to pay as much cash as you can. And I will mention that a purchase of a property, the down payment requirements are usually larger. Sometimes they're wanting 30%, I've heard, at minimum. So purchasing property is a totally different animal than what you and I are used to. And the times that I've bought and sold homes, or that you've bought and sold existing homes. So purchasing land has some different requirements. But once it is purchased, if there is a remaining balance or remaining note on the property, you can roll it into the construction loan. There is a way to do that. It's going to need to be appraised, and the potential home that you're building on that property needs to be appraised. That's where we come in as far as plans and specs. So if they're saying, hey, we want to give you $1 million to build your home, here's your construction loan. Well, they're not going to give you $1 million to build that construction or to construct that home if they don't know what you're building. And that's why we provide them a specification sheet of all those materials. And that's why we provide them with elevations and floor plans and a site plan. The site plan is, where's the home going to sit? How is it going to orient? And where are we building the home? We want to have those site prep costs accounted for as part of the construction loan, because that is a cost. So getting an appraisal so that they can start releasing funds is very important. So I probably gave you a little bit more of an answer than you were looking for, Peggy, but does that answer the intention of your question, or would you like me to elaborate more? Cool, thank you. That's also a very good question. I appreciate that. I'm ready for more. This is actually fun for me.
Jack, what's the most challenging thing you run into in working with a homeowner on a new construction process? I'm assuming one of the most challenging thing is the champagne taste beer budget, uh, but that's my guess. What would you say is the most challenging thing that you have to work with on a homeowner on a new construction?
I think you nailed it in the question, Doug, because the champagne taste with the beer budget, we run into that a lot. And when I started the company, I started as an architectural design firm that took on any and every architectural job we could possibly get. And when we'd spend months and months and months designing their dream home and just getting it perfect. You know, the garage is exactly how I want, and the living room is exactly how I want, and it's just as big as I want. And everything is it, you know. And then they go start the bidding process, and a builder will give them quotes based on the architectural plans. So it's, hey, here's the square footage, here's the dream, and then they go to build and they cannot. So they come back to us and they say, hey, I need all these plans. I need to get it under 600,000, for example. We've had people who are on kind of a smaller budget, and they'll go, yeah, what do you get? What can you do to get it there? And what's challenging is when they won't budge. When hey, I really got to have enough space for my 72-inch TV in the living room, so I really can't shrink the square footage. So when we design without accounting for budget, and I've made that mistake. I took on projects in which we just agnostically designed and said, "Hey, good luck. Go find a builder, and best of luck to you." But then we were beholden to make those changes and augmentations so that they could get what they wanted. We felt it was incumbent upon us to do that. And so to avert that challenge is kind of what I've been saying for the last 30 minutes is understanding and designing with your budget so that when we stop at each phase, we do 4 phases of work. And at each phase, we stop and review, are we within budget before we go on to the next? And then we proceed. But yeah, Doug, it's like you read my mind. That's the most challenging thing is money's very important. It's something we want to invest wisely, of course. And I tell people, hey, we can design the Taj Mahal together. We can go crazy, but can you build it? And the can you build it is going to be answered by a lot of those questions that we kind of spend our time going through. But it is hard. It's hard to get people to sometimes pull away from something they're attached to. But the better I understand their intention, what are you trying? What's the lifestyle or the experience you're trying to create? Well, what if there's another way to do that and still save you money and do it within your budget? You say you want a lot of light coming in. Well, that doesn't mean you have to spend $20,000, $30,000 on just your windows. You can get a lot of light in and stay within your budget. Um, that's a great question too, Doug. It's very challenging, and so we've tried to take an approach that answers as many of those budgetary questions up front as possible, and then giving them honest feedback. Um, I'd like to get to Deborah's question. I feel like this is a chicken or egg situation, but should someone try to find a floor plan house design first or the land first? Do you design the home for the land or look for the land to fit the design? That is a chicken and the egg, and that is a difficult question. I tell, I don't know if what you're asking is, uh, hey, should I go buy floor plans and go shop around with them? Some people do that. I'm kind of reading my own interpretation into your question, Deborah. But if somebody has floor plans that they've downloaded online, for me, for what we do, I would slap them. I'd say, don't do that. I don't spend money because it can be $2,000 to $5,000, and it's going to add up again on top of that because you're going to need engineering. You're going to need interior. You're going to need more than just what the plans can give you. So if you really want to customize it to the property, I would say wait. It's great to have inspiration. So again, chicken or egg. But if a client comes to me and says, "Here's a floor plan I like," it may or may not work on that property, but at least it guides me. Here's some inspiration I like. It may or may not work, but it guides me. I love Scandinavian. Well, what do you mean by Scandinavian? Or I got to have 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Well, okay, great, but we'll figure out how big they're going to those bedrooms and bathrooms can be within the property. So I would definitely go shopping for land with ideas, and it's easy to, you can take a screenshot of some floor plans you like. Don't buy them. We'll develop them for you. We'll turn them into actual floor plans that'll work on the property. But I would invest that money once you're ready to spend money on floor plans. There's no Me personally, I wouldn't do it until I'm ready to put it on a specific piece of property because I'm investing in developing that property with something that can work instead of I bought these plans and now I got to go find the land. Well, now you're trying to fit the peg into that hole, right? So I would wait until I've got a piece of property I really am serious about. The good news is with my firm, if a client is very serious about a property, right now we're engaged with a man who's developing in Jasper in the preserve at Sharp Mountain. He's got 14 acres, and we've decided that even though he hasn't purchased the property, we will engage him with a site feasibility study. So he has invested with us so that we can develop a kind of a hypothetical floor plan that will work on that property, and we'll test it. We'll test it with the view, we'll test it with the elevation, we'll test it with the topography. We'll start to get some information and see will it work before you put all this money, about 150 or whatever, into the property purchase. We're also going to ask questions to the HOA. Are they going to approve this design? Because we don't want him to invest a ton of money with my company and into the construction if the HOA is not going to even approve it. So doing that site feasibility study is very important. So it's a very complex answer, but I hope it gets to the heart of the question, which is have an idea, have some idea of what you want to develop as you're shopping. I think that's great, and be inspired. Have some fun, but don't spend a lot of money on floor plans if you don't know that you can actually build them. Do we design the home for the land or look for the land to fit the design? I'd say we designed the home for that property. If they're looking for land, I would point them to one of you first. So a lot of times it's geographical. If somebody's, I think Peggy's in, no, Deborah's in Forsyth. I can't remember where Peggy is, but as we're getting to know each other before the call starts. But if I know, hey, um, Tommy's in Atlanta or Deborah's in Cumming, those are the kind of things I'll point people to an agent who can help them where they're searching. And so if they're searching for land and they've talked to me about some design ideas, I'll usually try to partner them. And I hope that kind of ties into size question about do we sponsor real estate agents? If you're meaning do we invest money or a referral fee or something like that, that's on a case by case basis. Sponsoring a real estate agent, in my mind, means partnering the right agent with the right client. A lot of times that is geographical. Sometimes that's personality. Sometimes that's specialty. If we know an agent who's really great at finding land, what I'll also recommend with new build and new construction is talk to builders. PS or real estate agents, listen up. Talk to builders. They can usually find aftermarket or unlisted properties that are undeveloped. Make good relationships with those people because they're not on MLS. They're not public to everybody. Builders usually are the ones that have their ear to the ground there. But yeah, we do partner with real estate agents. I'm looking for people who fit our values, but also are geographically diverse enough to help our clients find what they're looking for. And typically, they've given me enough information. If they're still haven't bought land, but they've talked to us first, I've gotten enough information to know how to guide them. So I try to partner them with the right people. But hey, if you're looking for a kickback or something and you want to talk to me about it, and I'm not trying to fill in my own meaning here, but I'm always, I look for good reciprocal relationships. But Cy, does that, maybe I'll ask Deborah, does that answer your question? Am I hitting at? Cy, does that answer your question as far as what you're looking for in a partnership?
It definitely does.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to Annick's question. What's the average price per square foot for a single family home with 4 doors? I get this kind of question all the time. Everybody wants to know, hey, just give me a ballpark. There's not really, there's averages, but hey, if I go build a single family home with 4 doors in San Francisco, California, what do you think that's going to cost? If I build it in Cumming, Georgia, what do you think that's going to cost? They're way different. So I can't answer that question until I know where am I building, what am I building with. If you want to know some context, there are people out there who will quote you 150 dollars per square foot. There are builders who are out building developments, and they're a very different animal than us because they've got a crew that's going to go out and build 30 houses in a neighborhood. Their cost structure is very different than a builder who's going to build a custom home. Because hey, if you go out and build a whole bunch of houses and they're all single family homes with 4 doors, hey, they can do that all day because they've pre-bought a lot of lumber, they've pre-bought their labor crews. Hey, it's all kind of in there, and their cost per square foot is going to be much different. For context, a good custom home builder is probably going to start around 250 per square foot. Some of them are up to $400 per square foot. It all depends on where, and it all depends on what materials you're building with. So it's kind of a complex answer, Anik, but I understand the heart of the question because you're trying to answer that for clients. They're like, "Hey, I want to put a barn dominium on this acre, and give me some ballparks. Can I do it for 200,000 or less?" And when they come to us, and 200 is kind of on the low end of what's possible for a livable single family home because the custom prices are tend to be on the higher end. Again, I am not typically quoting these building costs. That's when you talk to a general contractor or a builder. That person is going to give you what their quote is to build the home, but it's only after they have plans and specs, just like a construction loan. They need plans and specs to give you a really good quote. And if they haven't got plans and specs and they're just shooting from the hip, to me, that'd be a little bit of a red flag. So, Anik, I hope that answers the question somewhat, but I can't tell you, hey, it's going to be X per square foot all the time. Does that help, Anik? I hope so.
Yes, I have to unmute myself. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jack. You
Yeah,
did.
good. Okay. Do we do renovation design? No, we do not. We did that in the past, but as I answered that question earlier, those are the things I would think about with a renovation. You can talk to architects who will do them and interior designers who will do them. But again, are you expanding the home? Get a site survey. Are you making exterior changes to the home? Understand the covenants and is it historical? Is it covenants, HOA? What are they going to approve or not approve? Get existing as-built drawings, get good as-built drawings before you start a renovation. I highly recommend that. Um, so how do we charge as a company? Myself, I charge a flat fee. I don't charge for revisions. I don't charge for trip charges or hourly or there's no variables. When I engage with somebody who wants to build a custom home, I give them a design fee that is a flat fee broken up into 4 phases, and it's based on the home itself. It's based on what they're trying to accomplish and which of my team is going to come to the table to design. Because I have about 6 individuals on my project and design team that come to it, and I need to make sure that they're well paid for the time that you're going to put into it. So I understand what the project's going to cost me before I quote it. But once I quote it, the client will know exactly how much it's going to cost from the day one to the day that they get everything they need to go start building. I hope that helps. These are great questions. And do we render as built? If you're asking, do we render? When I hear as built, I'm thinking of a home that exists. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, we do renderings as we go. If I can share my screen one more time, I'll show you some renderings of the home and I know we're close on time, so this won't take long. Let me show what some renderings look like, if that helps, just to give you some visual context for what the visual dialogue process looks like along the way. So this is the home that we designed in Talking Rock in North Georgia that I showed you. It's not built yet, but these would be after we've gone through the selection process. So we've already gone through all the interior selections. We've gone through the architecture. This is after the design is done. And so now we're showing the client what their home will look like before it's built. So we've developed some very high resolution images to show them the countertops, the range, the windows, the furniture, the colors that they've picked out, the materials that they've picked out in production. So we render as we get to the end of the design, and this is their last chance to speak up, so to speak, so they can say, hey, we really need to change those floors. They don't look quite what I thought they would look like in this picture. So we're going through and generating these renderings. I hope these are showing up, but this is what my company develops as we're closing towards construction.
Jack, those are
For everybody, you can
phenomenal.
see them.
I do see them, and quite honestly, they look like photographs, not computer
That's the
generated.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want it to look as close to real as possible so they can see where the sunlight's going to hit. So we actually took into consideration the orientation of the home. And yeah, this to me is going to be a beautiful home once it's built, but it gives us a really good idea of what we're working with. And thank you. Our team works really hard on that. Drawings, Ninfa, if you're asking about, yeah, those drawings are part of the process. So we're developing drawings as we go with the client. Um, that's happening in development. Architectural drawings, interior, um, everything's done on our computers these days. So, but we start a lot of times. We'll get out a pen and paper and draw as we go. These are great questions.
So are
I think we
those,
have 2 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, are those stamp drawings that we could take to a builder?
Yes. Let me
Okay.
show you what those look like.
And then,
I'm going to, yeah,
and then they can get permitting and whatnot.
yes. So
Okay.
let me pull up with our last minute or so here, I'll show you what
Jack,
a set of stamped drawings.
don't worry too much about time. Nothing magic happens at 2 p.m.
Okay.
So
Nobody's
if
going
we,
to turn into a pumpkin or anything.
no, if we run a few minutes over, there's no harm, especially when we have good questions and interest. So
Okay, awesome.
don't worry about it if we run a few minutes long.
Thanks for giving me some liberty there. Ninfa, if you can see my screen, this is a set of architectural drawings on a home that is being cleared to build. This is also in Talking Rock by coincidence, but it's a different piece of property. But what you see on that hero image is how it's going to sit on the actual topography. What you're seeing on the right column is the stamp from the structural engineer that we partner with to make sure that this home is actually going to be built. You'll see the words "for permit." So that means when they go to apply for the permit, our expectation is that the county will approve this. You'll see released for construction. That tells me that we stand by these drawings and they're ready to go. We've got all of the builder notes in here: mechanical, general, electrician, plumbing. We've got my screen froze. We have the site plan, site orientation. That's very important for approval. These are building sections. We want to show what that home's going to look like. Floor 1, 2, and 3. The actual floor plans with all the dimensions for the builder. This is what you're going to take to the builder, and these dimensions are instructions for the builder to build it properly. Floor plans, building sections. These are roof plans. Roof plans are part of the structural set. So structurally engineered documents, more building sections, elevations, wall sections. So we're getting into the engineering here. What are the materials going to be? How is this going to be built? Is it truss? Is it stick built? Et cetera. We're answering all these questions up front, and the client has an opportunity to see. Those renderings really help, but this is a place where they can see, how's the space planned for. A window and door schedule, very important. So we're selecting all of the styles and dimensions for the windows and doors. And like I said, it's all stamped foundation plans ready to go. Let me see, to pick your mind, is there another thing one can consider for additional light if not changing windows? That's a great question too. When you say changing windows, are you saying in the design process, if they can't get the light that they want from the window and door schedule, maybe you could clarify? I think that was Sandra asking that. Another thing they can consider is use of outdoor space. There's heated and unheated space. There's skylights. They need to really work with water flow if you're going to do something like that. There's orientation, or we would also call it passive design. How we orient the home can be designed in a way that's going to capture a lot of light with minimal glass. For example, we have one home that we designed in Ackworth, and the roof line is kind of like this. And in this space in between where the roof lines meet, we've built a series of transoms. And because it's facing east, I believe it's east, as the sun comes up, we're capturing a lot of light. And then we've designed the home in a way that's got higher ceilings. So that light's going to light up the home a lot better with natural light, just by very simple design. So that's an example of what we call passive design. So to answer that question, I hope passive design is a very important way to capture as much light as possible, because you're thinking about the property, you're thinking about the sun, you're thinking about trees. Are there trees in the way? Those things can improve light capture without a heavy investment um, into the windows, for example. Windows are the most expensive, one of the most expensive things, and they don't bear weight, and they let heat out and they let heat in. So the windows are a liability in every sense of the word, but they offer as much connection to the outdoors, and they're what we want. We want as much light as possible a lot of the time. So that's a challenge. So the way to work around that is to think about the property and think about the orientation and think about the site prep, all the things I've been talking about. I hope that helps. And I want to get to these other questions. Are the plans specific to the buyer, or are you able to sell their design wish list plans to others? In other words, they own the design. Yes, they do own the design. We own the copyright as the design firm that produced it, but usually we will, in our documents and our agreements, we will allow the clients to, they can put it on social media, they can share it with their friends, but we own the copyright. So if anybody took our designs and tried to duplicate them, and especially if we found out about it, we would be within our rights to sue them. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not going around looking for people stealing our plans, but I do take precautions to protect our plans. But also, I have had clients asking, "Hey, I don't want you selling my plans. So just because you develop these plans, I don't want you selling them online so that somebody else can duplicate my house." We don't do that. We don't intend to do that. Some people monetize plans that way. I'm not interested in that, because what I'm interested in is an individual getting their home built exactly the way they want. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't draw inspiration from some of the things we've designed in the past, but no, I don't resell plans, and I hope that our clients don't do that either. But it's a co-owned copyright, if that makes sense. But we, as the design firm, own the copyright from day one, and we give special permissions to the client to be able to use it. So yes, they own the design, but so do we, I guess, is a short way of putting it. Does that help, Peggy? Okay, I hope so. Are there any other questions? It looks like we needed the whole half hour for questions, and I'm glad we gave that time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. If there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and close our time together. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and I know that you found a lot of good information and good value from our time today. And I especially want to thank Jack for being our guest today on the Business Builder Speaker Series and sharing his knowledge and vision with us. It was great information, and we appreciate it.
Well, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So you did me a big favor by including me, and I have fun. I hope I get to meet as many of you in person as I can, and I hope you guys will connect with me digitally as well soon.
We will take our Zoom video today and we'll get it cleaned up and posted to our YouTube channel, and you'll receive an email with a link. And you can actually go to YouTube and Google Shafritz and Dean, find our channel, and find all of our previous Business Builder Speaker Series to review at your leisure. And thank you again for joining us today, and wish you all the best with your real estate in the future. Let Jack Baldwin of Brainerd Custom Homes or Doug Dean of Shafritz and Dean know if we can help you.